Summary of The Skilled Negotiator. Mastering the Language of Engagement. By Kathleen Kelley Reardon. What is negotiation? Negotiation is an interactive process where two or more sides engage in creating alliances and agreements. Negotiating requires you to be mindful of yourself and your assumptions, values, emotional triggers and issues, all factors you must also monitor in the other parties. Ideally, negotiating parties, who start from different vantage points, will talk until they reach a shared perspective that serves everyone and that everyone accepts as valid. To be a good negotiator, be versatile. You cannot plan a negotiation like a flow chart from beginning to end. Instead, you must change your tactics on the fly as you integrate new information and interact with other people. Your assumptions may block flexibility. Move past all your positive or negative assumptions to get to the heart of the issues. Broadly speaking, negotiations are either distributive or integrative. Distributive negotiation is primarily a winner-take-all approach. You try to win even if it costs the other party dearly. Integrative negotiation is more cooperative. These two types don't exist in a vacuum, of course, they are two ends of a spectrum. However, if you assume you're in one kind of negotiation and your opponent proceeds as if you are in another, watch for trouble. Moving beyond assumptions requires paying attention and gathering information. To be a skilled negotiator, learn to ask questions. Use open-ended questions early on to elicit the information you need to test your assumptions, and to give the other parties a chance to connect with you. As you listen to their answers, pay as much attention to connotation as to content. What is their body language saying? A huge part of negotiation is emotional, so you must be clear about the signals they send. Note how the speaker's individual comments position him or her in a hierarchy of interaction. Look for moves implied by specific comments. Did a comment claim the right to judge, placing the speaker above you? Did the speaker give in, acknowledging a lower position? Did the speaker sidestep, indicating a need for more time or, perhaps, some unwillingness to discuss a certain issue? Be aware of whatever moves the other party makes, so you can choose appropriate responses to guide the negotiation in your chosen direction. Do this directly, by naming what the other person has done, or reframe the comment with a skillfully chosen image, phrase, or metaphor. How to prepare. If you are prepared, you'll find it easier to respond smoothly in the moment and to stay balanced in the heat of a discussion. Know as much as you can about the specific issues that all the parties care about, the resources all sides bring to the table, how your counterparts negotiate, style and specific tactics, each person's reputation and authority to make binding agreements, and when all sides are likely to break off negotiations and for what reasons. First, clarify your positions. Identify the separate issues in the negotiation. Sort them into primary issues, secondary issues, and clutter issues. As the name suggests, clutter issues are likely to come up, but aren't important and will get in your way. Focus on the primary issues. Identify your ideal result for each issue and how you might attain it. Plan every element of your proposal, tone, frames, body language, order of presentation and so on. For each ideal result, also consider your BATNA, or best alternative to negotiated agreement. Know what your alternative course of action would be. The lack of a viable alternative could weaken your negotiating position. Study your counterpart or counterparts. Your observations should shape your planned tactics. Identify their issues, and where those issues overlap or diverge from yours. Identify which items are likely to be emotional. For each item, figure out the claims the other parties are likely to make, and the evidence they'll use. Guide your research according to the useful acronym ICE, that is, explore their interests, concerns, and emotions. Once you know what you'll probably encounter, plan your responses. Cover emotional concerns, and rational and factual matters, such as researching precise evidence to counter their material. To build an emotional bridge and institute the practice of honesty, plan comments that disclose your feelings. Research, observe and evaluate the other party's negotiating style in relation to your style. If you plunge into the heart of an issue, pushing for a speedy resolution, you may have the style of an achiever. An analyzer, by contrast, feels more comfortable with facts and logic. A motivator enjoys finding new ways to reach agreements, while someone with a mediator style focuses on compromise and personal connections. To identify your style, catalog your negotiating traits in a style inventory. Also consider your word choices, tone, and emphasis. The final elements of the preparation stage are really the first steps in the actual negotiation, are the agenda and the setting. You've sorted the issues, now, which ones belong on the agenda? Be clear about your wishes and be prepared for the other side to have different priorities. Once you settle on an agenda, arrange the issues so that you get to tackle them in the right order. In a highly charged situation, where conflict and strong emotions are likely, lead with agreement, that is, start with issues where all sides can agree. On the other hand, if you are confident that you can handle any conflict, start with the thorniest issue. Letting your counterparts know that this is your approach will show your confidence. Plan alternatives to your agenda, so that no matter how any item works out, you know where the negotiation will go next. Always have backup plans, in case you don't reach an agreement. Dedicate time to addressing each issue. Finally, design the method you'll use to move through the agenda, both the external process, each side alternating on each issue, and your personal process, how to frame and link each point. As you negotiate, approach disagreements by finding areas within them where the parties can agree. When you plan the context of a negotiation, account for every factor that might affect the outcome. Many aspects are physical: room size, temperature, refreshments, beverages, and so on. Plan each element to facilitate a successful outcome. Usually this means thinking of conditions that will put everyone at ease. Remove any obstacles, including any negative connotations. Even the table's shape can send a message. Some elements of context may be forced upon you, such as a pre-existing deadline. And some factors are not physical, but involve the politics or history of the disagreement. In such cases, modify the process as much as you can to take these concerns into account. For example, plan for the early stages of an emotionally charged negotiation to go slowly, so that all the participants can voice their emotions. This enables you to build trust. The negotiation itself, tactics, ethics, conflicts. Once you begin negotiating, expect your plans to change as new information is introduced and people respond emotionally. Open your negotiation strategically, with a strong but not offensively assertive statement, using confident but relaxed body language. Frame the discussion so that you control what is talked about, when, and how things are discussed. When your counterpart introduces a framing metaphor, respond to it in a measured way. If it is a useful frame, such as seeing the agreement as a house you are all building together, you might let it stand underscore that cooperative decision by reusing the language of their conceptual frame. If you don't agree, say the other side casts the negotiation as a tree on the edge of a cliff, change or expand the metaphor. Perhaps agree that the relationship is a tree, but accent the firm strength of the roots and the stability you hope to establish. Since you are trying to persuade people to share your viewpoint and agree to specific actions, presenting information isn't enough, nor is simply explaining what you want done. Instead, apply persuasive strategies that fit the situation. You can classify these strategies many ways, but the acronym ACE is useful in clarifying three main approaches: appropriateness, consistency, and effectiveness. An appeal to appropriateness applies the pressure of social norms, such as, all the other employees with your tenure have agreed to this. This is an attempt to persuade someone to act like the other people in their specific group. An appeal to consistency speaks to someone's internal self-image, either real or idealized. For instance, what do you think an honest employee like yourself should say in response? Reinforces the listener's self-image as an honest person. An appeal to effectiveness argues that the desired action works. Think through the situation, consider the person you're addressing and shape your appeal, or blend of appeals, accordingly. When you make a proposal, be deliberate about the order in which you present your material. Do you outline your suggestion first, and try to persuade the other party afterward? Or, do you build up to the actual request for action by using persuasion? Select your presentation order by matching your approach to the other party's style. For example, achievers will want to hear the proposal first, while analyzers will prefer to start with data. Solving problems, conflict, ethics, and power struggles. Pay attention to your counterpart's responses to your strategic choices and note how they try to shape your replies. Bias may creep in and distort the perceptions on both sides. Step back periodically for a more objective view, as if you are watching the interaction from the outside. Look for saving face, that is, how do people need to appear in front of others, and in their own eyes. Give your counterparts as much face as possible and help them save face, particularly if it seems they might lose it. In power interactions, be strong, but not overbearing. Don't dominate each exchange. In fact, let others provide data and then thank them. Like self-disclosure, this builds trust and dependency. Share personal details about similar experiences and try to discern any private factors that might influence the other parties. Don't threaten unless you must. Even then, veil the threat as much as possible so you can hide it again, if need be, restoring friendly relations and saving face. Sometimes negotiations bog down or conflicts break out. Stay balanced. Watch for unexpected disruptions, which can signal a need for a new strategy or alert you to the real issues. Don't respond to minor disruptions, be direct and clear to keep them from escalating into conflict. Remember to PURRR, pause, understand, reflect, reinterpret and redirect. Pause when you're about to respond angrily. Ask if you understand what's happening. Reflect on your understanding, seek clarification. Reinterpret what's going on. Mentally try more explanations. Redirect the negotiation back in the right direction. Reframe the difficult interaction, giving everyone the chance to do the right thing. Provide enough information for them to reach the decision you want. Present this information in a way that shows that you deserve good treatment. Most people respond to this communication pattern, but if you treat them with hostility, they'll respond with hostility. If they attack, they'll expect you to attack. Use this to your advantage, and respond calmly. Do not let your counterparts determine the ethics of your interaction. Hold to your ethical standards. Work with them, actively and consciously, to build an ethical agreement. This requires judgment, because you expect a certain degree of deception in negotiations. For example, dressing in your most expensive clothes you wouldn't otherwise wear. Might be a mild form of deception, since it might give the perception that you have a higher status than you actually do. Most people find that level of deception harmless. But deception becomes actively unethical when it moves to the level of the outright lie, especially lies that would distort or destroy the relationships you're building. For example, agreeing to something you have no intention of doing is actively unethical. Always act ethically, except for minor harmless deception, to build solid agreements now and to build your credibility for the future. Cross-cultural negotiations. Different cultures value the component parts of negotiations differently, including the many social interactions inherent in fashioning an agreement. Focus your preparatory research on identifying those differences and planning ways to deal with them. Examine how the culture you are negotiating with handles time, preferred pace, order, punctuality. How does that culture establish trust through facts or relationships? Between individuals or groups? How are decisions made and who makes them? If you're unfamiliar with the specific culture of your counterparties, consider an intermediary, but think about what that will do to the other party's perceptions about you. If you have to work with an interpreter, practice. And, in all cross-cultural negotiations, be patient.